What's up, guys? Welcome to my channel. Today, I want to ask the question, what is it like being an immigrant here in Finland? I've been living here for a whole 5 years as of filming this video, which is actually quite insane. I remember arriving here and not knowing what to expect, but now I've been living here for a bit of time and I feel like I can answer that question honestly. So, as you probably know, immigration all over Europe right now is all the rage. There's a lot of tension. Politically, it's a big question. And I understand those questions, and maybe a little later in this video, we'll tackle a little some of that. But what is it like living here? I'm just going to spoil the video right now and say that I am absolutely loving living here. It's not, when you watch videos about people who, or black people who move to, say, China or something, and they've got all those videos where Chinese people are just watching them and it's all awkward and that sort of stuff. It is not like that here. It's a completely different world. It's a completely different culture. And I personally have not had any problems. The issue with the immigration conversation is that people find it easy to just boil it down to racism or something like that. I think that is an easy way out, and it's not the true picture. But maybe we'll dive into that aspect of it a little bit later. I feel really blessed because living here, especially if it's your first time and you move here and you see the weather and the people are a bit strange and all that kind of stuff, it's important to understand that it's all got to do with your attitude. One thing I've noticed is, how is it that you can have two immigrants living here and one of them absolutely loves it and the other one just hates everything about it? It's all got to do with what happens in here. And I'm quite lucky. Like I said, I'm blessed because I have something to compare it to. I'm originally from South Africa and I love South Africa. I spent most of my life there. I love the people. I love the culture. But having moved from South Africa and coming to Finland, I'm easily able to compare what life is like in South Africa and what life is like here, which I guess it puts me in a bit of an advantage because I'm constantly feeling so blessed about how well things work here. And that is an important aspect of this, is how well everything works here. Finland is obviously doing something incredibly right because transport is great, healthcare is awesome, education and all of that stuff. So I don't have much to complain about. But one thing you will encounter here is that some people love to complain. And I'm not even talking about immigrants here. I'm also talking about Finnish people. I feel like a lot of Finnish people don't understand just how blessed they are to be living, to have been born in a country like this. So many people here don't know what it's like to be mugged, to get their cars stolen, to get a bunch of their things stolen, except bicycles. Those things disappear really quickly, no matter, even here in Finland, which is pretty hilarious. But to cut to the chase, once I moved here, did I feel like people were looking at me all weird? Like, oh, wow, there's a black guy. There's a dude who does not look like us. Absolutely not. I think an important thing to understand is the fact that Finnish people like to keep to themselves. They don't care what you look like as long as you're not causing trouble, you're not in their face, you're not disrespecting their culture, then you fit right in. You see, I have seen so many articles, well, not so many articles. I was reading an article just now about racism in Finland. And I find this quite interesting because studies like this are so apart from my own experience that I am I'm just really interested as to how some of this data was collected and that sort of stuff. So before I continue, I want to read a little bit of this article from Helsinki Times. Okay, here we go. Study: Finland is perceived as one of the most racist countries in the EU. You see, already with that title, it really blows my mind. And I'm not here to disrespect someone else's experience, but as someone who lives here, this is really surprising to me personally. People of African descent consider Finland as one of the most racist countries in the European Union, suggests a 13-member state study by the EU Agency of Fundamental Rights. In Finland, 43% of such people reported to having experienced racial harassment in the past year, a proportion that is higher than any of the other 12 countries: Austria, Belgium, Denmark, France, Germany, Ireland, Italy, Luxembourg, Poland, Portugal, Spain, and Sweden. The proportion rose to 52% when respondents were asked if they experienced racial harassment in the past 5 years. I'm quite interested what people mean by racial harassment in this particular case. The FRA asked about such experiences from residents of the countries who are originally from sub-Saharan Africa or have at least one parent from sub-Saharan Africa. The study received more than 6,700 responses. Racial harassment, it found, is common especially towards young women, the highly educated, and people wearing religious clothing. Finland found itself questionably near the top of the results also in terms of the extent of racial discrimination, with 54% of those surveyed in the country saying that they have perceived racial discrimination in the past year, and 63% in the past 5 years. Only Germany and Austria had a higher perceived level of racial discrimination. Very interesting. Results reflect persistent prejudice in Finland. The results of the study reflect lingering prejudices towards immigrants in Finland. Maybe this is an indication that we have some kind of an ethnic hierarchy. People from countries and groups of countries that are the furthest away from us and who are possibly different in terms of their appearance, they feel the most discrimination in Finland. That's really strange because my experience was absolutely opposite to this. I found that as long as I respected people and that I was kind to people, that I didn't act like an absolute ass, people didn't seem to really care what I looked like. She stated that it's sad at the individual level that people are not treated equally. Not treated equally. Okay. Adding that experiences of racism have been linked to psychological and somatic symptoms. She also called attention to the apparent disconnect between labor shortages and unwillingness to hire people of certain ethnic appearances. You know, I've heard of the study where people with a different name will send in their work application and get rejected or something. I haven't done a full review on that and how that was done. If you're interested, let me know below and I'll try dive into that and see how they came up with those numbers. But apparently the idea goes that if your name doesn't sound Finnish, then you get rejected or something along those lines. The thing I find interesting about that is that it specifically says if your name doesn't sound Finnish, but people boil it down to it simply being racism. Perhaps that's true. I do not know. And if you have any insight on that, let me know below. And like I said, I'm not trying to, look down on anyone else's experiences here. I'm just wondering why such an experience is so different to my own experience. In my first kind of look at that study, I noticed that at worst, it's probably something to do with I don't know, maybe a bit of xenophobia or a bit of feeling more comfortable around something that you know as opposed to something that you don't. And I'm not using that as an excuse, but I think that the word racism here, I think it things need to be analyzed a little bit more deeply before simply jumping into that. That's just my opinion, and I could be wrong, but I'm interested to know what you guys think below. For me, things have felt very different. It has felt very natural to just integrate myself into society here. I think what people miss about Finland is the fact that although Finnish people like to talk or joke and say bad things about their culture, like, in a way, when you really care about someone, you're able to tease them. I find that Finnish people tease their own culture, the fact that they like to be left alone and that sort of stuff. But underneath all of that is a deep pride about their own culture. Something that opened things up for me was just to accept the culture, to accept the fact that I'm here. If I hate it so much, I could just leave, you know? If the racism was crazy and I felt discriminated against in a way where it was impossible for me to live and work and that sort of stuff, I wouldn't waste time being here complaining about it. I would just freaking leave. I haven't thought about being black in so long while living here. Let me break that down a little bit. So when I lived in South Africa, as much as I love the place, you are reminded about your skin color quite often. It could be someone saying something to you. It could be whether it's nice or pretty racist. It could be that race is just something being spoken about so often. But I found that here, that hasn't been the case for me. I take public transport. I sit next to people. Sometimes I go to work. I participate in cultural events like going to saunas and doing ice swimming and that sort of stuff. And I'm barely reminded about the fact that I look different than anyone else. In fact, when I participate in things and I just talk about Finland and I just live my life, I find that people just actually relate to me as opposed to viewing me as someone who looks really different and who's from a different place, you know? And usually, if there's any issues, like take the whole immigration thing, the way I view it is that Finnish people just want to make sure that their culture is not dissolved in the process of allowing people inside the country. And when it comes to immigration, I know that the biggest issue or the biggest pain point has to do with humanitarian immigration, people who are not able to come and add to the economy straight away. Because this country works really well because people work, pay taxes, and those taxes pay for things, public services like schools, public transport, and that sort of stuff. So when people come here and are not able to contribute, it feels to the people who are working and paying taxes that their money is going somewhere and it's not benefiting them directly. Now, is that racist? I don't think so. And I think that someone can approach that subject without pointing fingers at and trying to blame racial things as opposed to it just being a natural thing. The fact that, hey, yo, if you come here, add to the economy. Don't just come here and complain and then decide that you're not getting enough from the government. Yes, this country, like every other country, has issues. I'm not disputing that. But for me, every time I wake up here and I look outside, I can't help but feel incredibly blessed. I can't help but feel blessed that I live in a place where I am safe, where I know that the government at least tries to make life easier for its people. Even though right now politically there's a bit of upheaval and there's a lot of political talk and blah, blah, blah. But the fact still remains that if you're living here, you're living quite good. And it doesn't matter where you come from. And if we have to move this conversation now to things like work, this place is incredible. You're able to earn a living by doing the most basic work. I could live pretty well by washing dishes, for example. I could wash dishes and be able to afford myself a small little apartment, have food in the fridge. It would be very hard for me to go hungry. This is one of those places where if you are living on the street here in Finland, it's probably your fault. I know that sounds kind of rough to say, but this isn't America or some of these other places. Things work so well here and are made in such a way where most people can live quite a decent life. So, what is life like as an immigrant here? For me personally, it is absolutely amazing. I walk around with a light heart, a light soul. I'm not walking around feeling like people are looking at me and judging me or anything like that. In fact, people here like to keep to themselves and they are quite introspective. I make a lot of jokes about how people don't like to stand close to each other if given the opportunity and that sort of stuff. It's not because they see me and they see my color and they're like, oh no, I don't want to stand by that black guy. No, they just don't like anyone in general. If you just treat people with respect and kindness, there is no way that you'll just receive bad vibes from people. And if you do receive bad vibes, someone is just having a bad day. What I would tell anyone moving here is that your attitude is the most important thing. You decide what you see. If I sit next to someone and they look at me weird, I can believe that it's because I look different and my skin's different and I am a foreigner, or the person was just looking, or the person was thinking about their own issues in their minds. The world does not revolve around me. So my posture here in Finland is that I always try and see the most positive things. I'm not saying that I sweep bad things under the carpet or anything. I am very willing to look at terrible things in the face and talk about them like I've done on multiple occasions here on YouTube or on my other social media channels. I get to choose what I see. And this goes to Finnish people as well. You can complain if you want, but if your complaining just stops there and you don't do anything about it, then there is no power to your complaining. Then it's just complaining because you're absolutely privileged. It's kind of funny when I hear, say, people from countries like South Africa who are upset about, I don't know, how much money the government gives you here in Finland. And it's just funny. Sometimes I sit back and I'm like, wow, what a world we live in where we can complain about the government not giving enough money. I come from a place where that can never even be a conversation. It's not even in my mental, in any space in my mind, and that just goes to show just how privileged one is when living here. And this isn't to say that it's not good to talk about some of these things, especially if you're paying taxes and that sort of stuff. And it's also not saying that if there's any injustice being put on immigrants, that shouldn't be sorted out or whatnot. But it's just an important thing to understand what your posture is. Because I will reiterate, for those of us who are living here, we are indeed blessed. Yes, the weather can be rough. Yes, it can be dark. Yes, the people can be a bit different, a bit more introspective, and a little bit more unwilling to just randomly talk to people. But you can either take that in your stride, or you can just believe that this is a terrible country. And if that's the case, why not rather just move? If it's that bad. But personally, for me, this is a great place. There's great people. I love the culture. I've got nothing to complain about, to be honest. I genuinely have nothing to complain about. I can't believe how easy life is here, just when it comes to all the physical things. All the things that matter in making quality of life good. I just recently did a video talking about Finland being the happiest country. And the conclusion of that video was that happy, the way we describe it, is not the correct way of describing what people here feel. A better way of describing it is that people here are more likely to be content. And if you sort out people's physical needs, usually the country will score really high in contentedness or contentness. And there's still issues. People are still depressed and all of that sort of stuff. But those things are sorted out. Once again, what is life like as an immigrant here? It's good. I love it. I genuinely do. And I think that the world will be better if we all focus a little bit more on looking at the brighter side of things. Take a moment to actually feel blessed for the things that are so common here. The fact that when you're walking down the street and someone's walking behind you, you generally don't have to stress that they're going to knock you down and take your stuff. You genuinely don't need to fear being beaten up because you look a certain way. At least that has been my experience. When it comes to immigration and stuff, it's an ongoing issue, and it's going to unfold in ways that are going to be interesting. But I will tell you that if you just break it down to just racism, you're probably viewing things the wrong way, and you're not seeing a very clear picture. At least that's what I think. So, yeah. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this video. Let me know if there's anything else you want me to talk about below. And remember, you are blessed. Anyway, you guys are awesome. And the weather looks pretty trash outside, to be honest. Look at me complaining. Anyway, guys, cheers. Bye.